Housing and Human Welfare Committee meeting. It is February the 12th, 6:42 p.m. First item on the agenda, and give me a second because this is not our committee agenda. First item on the agenda is the roll call, starting with Alderman Huntley,
Present.
Alderman Schandelmeyer,
Present.
and Alderman Gay. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve our minutes from the meeting on January the 9th, 2025?
I will make the motion.
I'm sorry?
I will make the
I'm
motion.
sorry, is
to
there a
approve.
motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from our January the 9th, 2025 meeting. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next item on the agenda is legislation starting with R 3824, condemnation and possession of real property at 245 West Street for the purpose of authorizing the condemnation of possession of real property at 245 West Street in the city of Annapolis. Alderman Huntley, do you want to speak to this?
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised to see this back on our agenda because we did already recommend it favorably. So, but just as a reminder for everybody, this would condemn the abandoned gas station on West Street in my ward. I can't tell you how many folks say to me that this is one of their biggest issues, believe it or not, that they are so fed up with this and feel really strongly that they just want to see it gone. It's disgusting. And the hope with this is to convey a sense of urgency to the current owners who have apparently no urgency. And yeah, like I said, we've already passed this. We've passed it out of the Finance Committee. We have brought it to the floor and delayed it, postponed it twice now, with the understanding that it will be back at our first meeting in March, and there will be no more postponement. So at that point, either there will be a agreement inked, and we will remove it from our agenda, or we will. The city will move forward with this and condemn and potentially buy this property. So that's what's going on.
Yeah, and I think the reason that it's back on our agenda is because in the council meeting that it was sent back to the committees, we hadn't had a meeting since then. Yeah.
Right, okay.
And so this is just us getting it out so that by March, that it's all set.
Got it. Right, thank you.
Any other questions on this?
We do have an amendment on it now.
Is there, okay, I see, yes, the Savage Amendment number 1. Just give me 1 second.
Did we not already approve this amendment before?
No.
I think this is a new. Amendment number 1 is a statement that the city council supports the inclusion of public green space if 233 West is developed when the city takes legal possession of the property. Alderman Savage?
Isn't here.
I mean, Alderman Schandelmeyer?
I shaved. He doesn't hear. I don't. So I think he has got a good intention with this, but it's a small lot, and including this is probably going to make a project more difficult to pass through, especially if we want to put capital A HUD-defined affordable housing, which means you need to maximize the space even with tax incentives.
Well, for one, I don't know if we want, I thought that the objective was to get into some sort of public-private partnership with this.
I think at this point,
So I'm just saying that to say I don't know what the average median income would be for a requirement to apply for this property.
I don't know either, but
my take on this is that I would be very happy with this property becoming housing. I would be very happy with this property becoming green space, very unhappy with how it is right now. So my suggestion is that we favorably recommend this amendment. We amend this amendment to, instead of saying "and public green space," say "and or public green space," and that we approve it in that with that.
I actually would not be in favor of that amendment because
Okay.
I agree. No,
that's fine.
Yeah, I acknowledge that green space is important, but I acknowledge more that the need for housing stock is important. And I share the concern with Alderman Schandelmeyer And I also would point to, and if the city manager would correct me if I'm wrong here, adequate public facilities exist for recreation. And if you're developing a property, you have to, and you forego green space, there has to be a park or green space of some sort within a half a mile that you either invest in or the public has an option to go there as opposed to you developing green space on your property.
Adequate public, sorry, Vicky Buckland, Assistant City Manager. Adequate public facilities does include considerations for recreation. However, I would have to go back. It's been a while since I've looked at that section of the code. I don't remember what the parameters of it are. And of course, the city has been looking at revising that section of the code anyway.
Alderman Gay, I'll say, I think you and I are thinking along the same lines here. What, in my, possibly outside of my ability to control as an alderman, perfect vision of this area, is that parking lot be developed into affordable housing. I'm sorry, not parking lot, that gas station. And that as part of that redevelopment, they do contribute via our adequate public facilities ordinance towards what would be a green space across the street when that big currently chunk of green space, which is much larger, is able to get redeveloped into their housing and green space. Now, that may, again, be beyond the ability of the council to control, but that is sort of my dream for those two currently thoroughly underutilized properties.
And I would also just add that there is no, and it may just be in the Main Street corridor because I was extremely interested in green rooftops for residential units. And I know that there was opposition downtown, and I'm assuming it was because of the historic Annapolis and/or Historic Preservation Commission. But I'm not sure what, for example, in Upper West Street, are you, maybe Director Jakubiak, if you could at some point let us know if you're able to have green roofs there, that would be something also to consider. And so, I mean, I say all of that to say, I guess we pass this because it will be back in front of the council in March. And by then we may get the answers back from the director and from the deputy city manager about the adequate public facilities. And then we just add that amendment on in the meeting in March.
So sort of point by point there, this is outside of the historic district, so I think we would have more leeway to do green roofs here. And yeah, I do not want the amendment as it currently is. I'd be fine with I would be fine with not adding it, but my preference is to say and/or public green space.
Okay. Well, let's do this. I'll make a motion to add to Amendment 1. It'll still say exactly what it says. We'll just say and/or public green space. Kalen, would you add that?
And if I can just say one more reason why I think this is important is that there's a lot of uncertainty about this lot. It was a former gas station. It is a brownfield site. We don't know how much and of what kind of remediation it might need if the city goes forward with purchasing it. So I'd prefer to keep our options open.
That's a very, very good point. So let's make or is there a motion to accept the amendment on the floor to change the verbiage to read affordable housing and/or public green space on the same blighted and vacant lot?
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. Next item on the agenda. Oh, I'm sorry. Is there a motion to vote on R 3824 as amended for the full council?
So moved.
All is in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next item on the agenda is ID 2825, Admiral Oaks update. So we do have public here. We'll do 2 minutes. Yeah, 1 second. We'll do 2 minutes public testimony. you'll say your name, your address at the mic. I'll start with allowing the Alderwoman to speak, and then we'll jump into the discussion on Amber Oaks.
Thank you, Alderman Gay, and members of the Housing and Human Welfare Standing Committee, Rhonda Pendell Charles, and Napa City Council, Ward 3. I represent the residents who reside in the Admiral Oaks community. I'm just going to give kind of a light background, especially for those who aren't privy that Alderman Huntley just joined our team. Anyway, I've been on the council since December of 2013. Since that time, we've had a plethora of property managers at that time serving Admiral Oaks, and I kind of equated to how many times have we changed underwear since then? I exaggerate, but we've had quite a few. One to the point who wouldn't even speak to me, others who've been very friendly. In October of 2022, I accompanied the property manager and team city to inspect 150 of the units. I did not go inside. That is a private place for our residents. I stood on the sidewalk, but 2 residents did ask me to come in and take a look. Out of, I think it was 150, we had all but 3 had violations. I spent 4 entire days during that time because I wanted to see how it went. And at the end of the 4th day, I asked 2 questions. First question was, did everybody understand what went on the other 4 days? And the second question was, did anyone have any questions? So I wanted to make sure once we left there, everyone was clear as to what was going on. The group came back January, 3 months later. I was not able to accompany everyone on that tour and that time of inspection, but my understanding, based on the report I got, I think it was all but 2 were rectified to some degree. A few months later, in Easter of 2023, I got a call from a resident on Easter Friday, Good Friday, and said, "Miss Rhonda, it's a mess over here. All these garbage cans have a lot of trash overloaded in every trash can." Not that I didn't believe the resident, but I myself went over there, took some pictures, and indeed that was the case. I was appalled at what I saw. I went back home. I sent an email to the top to the bottom of enterprise management. And I indicated to them, or I told them, that within 24 hours from Friday, Good Friday at 6 o'clock, that stuff should be cleaned up, because no one, especially during Easter, but anytime, should have to suffer through what I saw. Well, by 6 o'clock on Saturday, the day before Easter, it was cleaned up. We called them in, I believe it was in May of 2023, and we were assured by Mr. Seawright, by Ms. Princess, that everything was fine. We wanted really to have quarterly meetings, but they seemed very sincere. Ms. Lavi and Ms. Jennifer, who I had the best relationships with there in the office, were there. They were very attuned. They were very friendly. Whenever I came over with an issue, they took care of it right away. So much, in fact, till last summer, I was to bring over to them 2 city alderman citations because they had been so wonderful in their processes and in their responses to the residents. I found out, I guess it was 3 months later, that they were gone. I couldn't believe it. I was shocked. The stories that I heard as to why they were gone were very troubling. They had been the best I had ever seen of the ones we'd had there. So anyway, like I said, we didn't have the quarterly meetings. I was very upset about the fact that Ms. Lavi and Ms. Jennifer weren't there. I asked management, is there some way that I could contact them? They said no. So anyway, we decided to have another meeting with the Housing and Human Welfare Committee. We started, I believe, in November, but there have been some issues trying to get meetings, and then the holidays came, so it was not our fault totally, but it definitely wasn't anyone else's fault. So finally, we are here today, and today, our City Council Associate, Ms. Jackson, received a email from Ms. Princess. This is dated Wednesday, February the 12th, 2025, at 3:36 p.m. Quote, Mr. Seawright is out of the office this week. I fully intended to attend tonight's meeting, but due to a personal health emergency, I'm unable to do so. I will make every effort to attend next month's meeting. I appreciate your understanding and thank you in advance for your consideration, unquote. They were given notice about these meetings. I don't know what happened. I'm not going to speculate as to what it could be. Of course, right now it is 6:57 and they are not here. Today we do have residents. We have advocates and supporters of these residents, about 12, including our HACA Executive Director, Ms. Melissa Maddox Evans, as well as our Planning and Zoning Director, Mr. Jakubiak. Ms. Tony Strong Pratt is here with her husband, and they work diligently with our residents as far as issues are concerned. Over the past several months, we've gotten a numerous number of emails and photographs as to what the conditions look like at Admiral Oaks. Again, this situation should not be one that people have to live in. I'm going to suggest, number one, that for the next meeting in March, that we get 3 dates from Mr. Seawright and Ms. Princess on the days they can come. And if we can accommodate them, then so be it. But also, I'm asking, and we don't have the Office of Law here today, do we have subpoena power to bring them in here? I don't know the answer to that question. But what I will say is, I hope they hear me. I hope that they hear me, because this is appalling. Now, what I will say too, this summer, the mayor's office and I went around to the different communities, giving micro grants for communities to do community work. We went to 15 communities. We had someone to accept the micro grant at every community except for Admiral Oaks. There was no one in the office. The day that we went, the office was closed. We have tried to be the best that we can be when it comes to these residents. Now, what I will say is Ms. Princess has reached out to me about coming over and meeting. I think the new lady's name is Miss Williams, maybe. I have not met her. And I will say this, I answer all my emails, but I am so appalled until I've not answered any one of Ms. Princess's emails. But what I will say is this, since I have not been answering them, she's been pretty accommodating. She has responded to certain situations via email. Now, whether these situations have been rectified, I don't know. So my feeling is, if I don't respond to her, then obviously something is moving. But that is not the way I operate. But I figure whatever way I operate, if it works, then so be it. So anyway, I guess that's my tirade for today. Thank you so much, committee.
No problem. Thank you very much, Alderwoman. I think I'm trying to decide what we should do next, because obviously want to allow public testimony, but I also want to get into discussion with some of the stuff that the Alderwoman had mentioned. So let's bring forward first, if possible, Director Jakubiak and the Director Maddox Evans. We'll jump through any questions that the committee have, and then we'll obviously get into public testimony. But I just want to speak on the Admiral Oaks issue first, and I think that's important. I also wish that we too had our, if you two wouldn't mind, thank you. I also too wish that we had our Office of Law here, and I thought I made a point of saying at the last minute that regardless of what you think on the agenda would need the attorney should be here, because they're paid to attend the committee meetings. They're assigned committee meetings, so they should be at the committee meetings. We all came here. It's the least that they could do. My question in regards to, first, if you wouldn't mind just explaining the Housing Authority's relationship with Admiral Oaks, because what I don't also want people to get is thinking that this has something to do with the operation of the Housing Authority. Could you explain that relationship? Yeah, make sure it's
Hello?
green. Thank you.
Okay.
Sure. Thank you for inviting me today to the commission to answer any questions you may have. The Housing Authority of the City of Annapolis does not have a direct relationship with Admiral Oaks in terms of ownership of either the land or the buildings, nor are we involved directly in any management of that property. We do, however, have an indirect interest if there are residents there that are utilizing a housing choice voucher that live on our properties. And so we do administer a tenant-based housing voucher program in which a participant can find homes throughout the city of Annapolis and even in Anne Arundel County. So we do have residents, now I don't know the exact number, that do utilize vouchers at the facility. So in that, there is a requirement to have an annual inspection of their particular unit. And that is what our inspectors would be involved. So if we do receive a complaint from a participant that has a voucher, we would go out and conduct an inspection in addition to the standard annual inspection.
The number of residents that have vouchers on the property, directly linked to the housing authority in the city, would it be less than 50?
It would be, yes,
Okay,
correct.
okay,
Yeah.
all right. Any questions for Ms. Maddox Evans or any questions for, second question in the follow-up, and I greatly appreciate the notes that you sent to us this afternoon, Director Jakubiak. And this has to do primarily with the enforcement authority that the city of Annapolis has had. And I think that's something that continues to elude the council and our trying to gain an understanding of what authority do we have when these nuisance properties, have a continued pattern of neglecting their residents. That was a question that I did ask of the Office of Law. They did pull up certain portions of the code for me, and we're in an email back and forth and trying to figure out if there is a portion of the code that we could address or maybe add amendments to. But to your knowledge, is there something that we can do within our authority? In the email that you sent to us this afternoon, you noted that on January 7th, they started the process to have their annual inspections and all of that, and they're scheduled to take place on the 18th and the 19th of this year, which coincidentally, I will say February the 18th is my birthday. So, but can the planning department actually not allow them to move forward with the inspections, in essence, hold off from the inspections and by proxy their licenses, relicensing the properties until we have a legitimate plan from the development corporation that they would move forward with some sort of rehab to the property. I asked that just because I do appreciate that you also sent the air quality test and all of that, and there seems to be like, even with with the inspections, it's like they pass the inspection because they meet the minimal threshold, but the minimal threshold has residents in just a terrible quality of life. And I don't think that's the fault of us because we're obviously operating within the confinements of the law. But what can we do then to change that? What's in our authority? And I, either of you all could jump into that. But I'm curious, in your position, can the planning department hold out on those annual inspections?
Well, I don't know that we can refrain from doing our annual inspections, particularly if the manager follows the procedures properly to file for them and pay for the annual inspections. And after all, it's the annual inspections that are meant to uncover issues, and remediating these issues are meant to improve conditions for residents. So if we hold back, we may not find out or uncover issues that otherwise we could fix or see fixed. So I don't know that it's in our interest to hold back those annual inspections. They perform a good role.
Yeah, exactly. And I shouldn't say that because we got ourselves into trouble with that before.
Yeah.
But you don't, but why would, well, how, okay, if we're not postponing the inspection, that's a much better word, until the property is, coming forward with a commitment that they would, rehab the units. Can the planning department inspect at a higher threshold than we currently are? That would, essentially force the property owner, to remediate the unit or to rehab the units.
Well,
And when I say rehab the units, and I don't know, I'm not sure if the Alderman would agree with me. I think at this point it's necessary for, maybe just as you all have just done in Bloomsbury Square, unit by unit, they strip it down to the drywall and, just completely redo the entire thing. Because again, the repetitiveness in these issues can only get worse. And I think what's different with this property, unlike HACA, they actually collect rent still. They actually have, to my knowledge, reserves through HUD that they could actually pull down and rehab their units with. So I just don't think they're doing all they can.
what I can suggest, and I had an opportunity very briefly to talk with some of the residents just before coming up to sit in front of you. And I'm impressed by their concerns that extend beyond the calling in with issues and then the sense that we send the inspectors out, the contractors fix the underlying or fix the issue that's apparent. We certify that the inspection is sound and we step away, but apparently in some instances there's an underlying issue that is not being addressed, a fundamental issue. So what I would suggest actually during this period of leading up to the inspections and during the inspections, while we still have the authority to hold the licenses, is a meeting with the owner of the property, not simply the property manager, but the owner, which I understand is the enterprise, and have them come meet with us so we can discuss these more foundational issues. It doesn't benefit us, and we're not applying the city's codes properly if they're in fact evidence of underlying structural issues that are being patched over. That's just, we can't do that. If there are these issues, then I need to know about them, and we need to sit down with the owner and come up with a game plan. As far as our annual inspections and our just routine inspections, the person sitting next to me can attest that the city staff does not go lightly on any residential unit. Inspections are tough in Annapolis, and among, I believe, the toughest in the state of Maryland. And but that doesn't correct a situation that is more foundational. I mean, if there's literally water coming into a building somehow, or if the structure is somehow in need of major modernization, those types of issues would need to be addressed. And it's okay for the city to ask an owner, what is the status?
Yeah.
Prove to us that these issues that are recurring are just flukes. Because we have a suspicion that it's more tied to structural condition of the building itself, and we need to grapple with that at a different level.
And I honestly don't think they know. And part of, I don't say that lightly, but, and I share frustration with you with this, the property management company and development company, and their development property management and resident services company is what they market themselves as. But I do share your frustration with that. And our preparation for this meeting, one of the individuals reached out to me and said, well, what units, what concerns? And, my thought is, well, why am I doing your job? You're the property management. It's not my responsibility to take note of the issues that, residents or the city find in your units, and then to communicate those to you, and then to follow up on, what actually needs to be done. I just don't think that is acceptable. And I also think that not the property management, but the companies themselves, I do think that they are taking us lightly because we aren't clear on our subpoena powers. And that's what we need the attorney to tell us. Do we have to go to the circuit court and actually have them get involved and have them send a letter to say, hey, you have to show up to this meeting? Or do we have our attorneys do it? We need clarity on that so that at the, I don't think it should be at the next meeting. I actually think it should be before, because our next meeting at this point is scheduled for March the 17th, which is a month away. If we have an opportunity to meet with them in between time, I think we should do so, in particularly with the planning director, so that they could address those meetings. I can't believe that Kevin Seawright, who had been communicating with us, would be out of the office this week when there had been clear indignation that this meeting was taking place. He called me, and we had been playing phone tag, and so we missed each other, but I can't believe that that would not be communicated to us.
I have not heard from him at all since probably our last meeting.
Okay, yeah, so that's where that stands. So
In answer to your broader question, and I'll be quiet because I want to listen to
please,
the residents too. There are the question of what more legally can the city do. I can't opine on that. You've already asked the city attorney's office, so I'll wait for their answers too and coordinate with them as necessary. But there are two sections of city code that relate to housing and housing condition, and that's Title 18, which is landlord and tenant relations. So there might be something there that's relevant that we should all consider. And then, of course, Title 17 and 17.44, which is the rental unit license and the inspection regime and all those requirements that are imposed on property owners. So there's a lot in them, and it may be that it's time to relook at those, and maybe it's necessary to offer changes that deal with issues that you're seeing. I don't know if that's in fact the case, but that's something I'm willing to work with Mike Lyles in the law office about.
that would be fantastic, because I don't know if I checked out Title 18. I definitely have 17.4.84 here. This is with the correctional notice as it relates to the inspection process. When they say the notice shall advise the owner, agent, operator, occupant, as the case may be, of the right to appeal to the Board of Appeals, and shall state that unless the condition violating this chapter is corrected within the time specified, the owner, occupant, or operator, as the case may be prosecuted for violation. What is the prosecution?
Well, that's when we file a civil citation.
Okay.
And a court date is set, and the city advances to prosecute the citation, like we do routinely. It would be that is the authority that gives the city the right
Which is
to
the
pursue.
extent of our, at this time. Okay.
To collect fines and
Yeah.
otherwise impose burdens on the owner that doesn't comply with the law.
All right, I appreciate it very much. I think Alderman Shandelmeyer had a question as well.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So when inspections are done, if we miss something, let's say at the time, let's say we inspect a unit and we either miss an issue or an issue develops after the inspection, and it's called to our attention later, do we have the ability to pull a rental license after we've already given it?
If the repair is not fixed, we have to provide due process and opportunity to fix the repair. If we've missed it, then we would notify the owner, the property manager, to remediate the issue. If there's no fix, yes. Right?
How long is the fixing deadline given?
I don't know. I don't know what the code provides for. It might be up to the the discretion of the inspector based on the extent of the project, but I can't recall what the code provides for there.
Okay. If you could please get that to us
Sure.
later.
Okay.
And, excuse me, sorry. I guess one of our other follow-up questions that I'm having is how often do we trace these structural problems to these buildings? Because I feel like we're giving approvals to units where same issue kind of pops up time and time again. Whether it's leaks or mold issues, and part of these buildings are just old.
Yeah.
They're past their useful shelf life. Personally, might be close to redevelopment time on them, but
Right.
they are still places where people are living, and we need to make sure they're upkept well as possible. So how often do we actually like trace those dots and connect those dots for what are those structural issues, and what's our enforcement mechanism on making sure they're actually addressed?
It's a good question, and I don't have the legacy here, the time with the department to piece that together, but I can look into that. It's obviously an important issue and question. So I can get back to the committee on that.
Okay. All right, that's all the questions I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. It just looks like we need the, I'm looking here, Community Development Division of Enterprise, if we could, that's where the bulk of this lies as I just looked through their webpage. Any further questions before we just hear from the public on this? We'll follow up with the attorneys, get the advice that we need from them. I think the main objective is to figure out a way that we can either amend Title 17 or 18 to allow I don't know if we want to give this the authority to the city council or the authority to the planning director to take further action on, nuisance properties. And then we have to look at, I guess, neighboring jurisdictions and say, well, what punishment can we actually, inflict on the development or residential service provider? Because the catch-22 is that if we take the license offline, the resident really is not supposed to be living in the unit. And so you have a unit that's not online, that's not being inspected, and a resident living in the unit. If we find them, it's a $1 million company that pays our $1,000 fine, and they just have the capital to do that. So we really can't pull the license. The fine is not enough, so we need to be able to figure out what authority, and if we have to go to HUD, I think that's also who we should. Actually, last point, Denise made a very, very good point in conversation that we should be pulling in a HUD representative here. And I don't know if we bring them into to this meeting that we're setting up in the meantime, or we bring them to the next Housing and Human Welfare Committee meeting. Obviously, we'd have to find out who the appropriate individual would be, or do we go through DHCD maybe and have someone be a representative there? Nonetheless, we would need help from a much larger agency than us. Alderwoman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My major concern, I guess, when there's a unit that goes offline, the displacement of the residents, those who have children, those who work and depend on a certain modem of transportation, the bus schedule with the school system, all of that is disruptive. And that's really a lot of my concern. I mean, I'm concerned about everything, but that's a big part of my concern as well, the disruption of lives. So, thank you.
Alderman Gay.
Yeah, of course, Alderman.
I just want, before, I appreciate having both of you here. We were talking a lot here about the ability of the city council to compel witnesses, and I just, while we were all talking, did a little bit of looking. It's in our city charter and in our city code that I'll read it to you. City Council and any of its standing committees through its chairman may summon and require the testimony of any witnesses, require the production from any witnesses summoned of any paper which may be of interest in any hearing. And then later on, we have any person who is summoned under those provisions and fails to appear is guilty of a misdemeanor. So if the chairman is interested, I think we could vote on compelling folks to attend.
We need to figure out what the attorney would like us to do. I mean, if it's a vote tonight, we do the vote. But if it's, I'm assuming that we would have to have some official written notice sent to the,
Offending parties.
yeah, and individuals that we'd like to come forward and yeah. So I want to, is that the feasibility on that?
I've reached out to Office of Law, letting them know that that you have this question.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you, Ms. Buckland.
Thank you both as well. We'll definitely be in touch, and hopefully we're meeting within the next week with the appropriate parties, whether it be virtual or in person. All right, let's start with public testimony.
Thank you both.
Just line up here. Who would ever like to speak, just share your name and your address. And just make sure that the green light is on. At the stand here, I'm sorry.
Oh, hi. Look like we have several residents that's from Admiral Oaks, I believe. Yeah. So we have a lot of major concerns going on down there. Where's the,
Before we start,
As they
just before we start, you need your name and your address.
oh, yes. Hi. My name is Angela Neal. I'm originally from the 4th Ward. Urban manure had came in, so we had to relocate to Murray Hill, Southgate Avenue, for 45 years. Whereas though my family sold the property, so through being a veteran, I end up having veteran preference under a voucher program to move to Admiral Oaks, Newtown 19, Boston Heights, Captain Circle. We have another resident.
Well, yeah, just do it one at a time, because what we'll do is,
Oh.
you get,
I'm sorry.
yeah, you'll do 3 minutes, she'll do hers, and then whoever else will, yeah.
So, the city of Annapolis had came out apparently, 2021 or 2022, to do inspection on several units. So they sent in contractors. I don't know whether they were licensed contractors or just special people that knew how to do patch up, paint up, cover it up, so we can remain in our units. But I understand if we have all these structures and issues going on down there that no one is attending to, so we don't have the property, can't find the property manager, the property owner not here. No one's here. So it's like we've been pushed back on all these issues that have been neglected. So they had like a Boys and Girls Club that originally was going to be shut down, but by the community being mostly brown, like 98.2% of the brown folks there, and about, 3% of us Black African Americans there. So we feel as though that the issues are like the sewer backup, water problems, the structure, the floors, wet carpet, mold, mildew, you name it. I constantly contact them at the rental office so they either don't pick up the phone, or we've been through so many different property managers down there, so a lot of information had been shredded. So once you make a phone call and say that this is going on, it doesn't get repaired until housing authorities set up an inspection to come in. So once housing is required to inspect the unit, then that's where as though you'll get a garbage disposal that you had a bucket under the sink for like 6 months, a toilet backup, whereas though you took the proper measures to contact them, clean up any backup around the toilet area, whereas though you have a maintenance person that's going to come in and seal feces around the toilet. Okay, I have 2 pieces of plywood that is on top of the roof, whereas so I decided to take my money over to escrow because the leakage was so bad. So apparently the water had ran down through the structure onto the floor, whereas though it's wetness of the carpet. It caused some anxiety, whereas though it caused health problems, and I understand that if they don't get their license, then that means that they will be what? Shut down. I don't know whether the health is important or somewhere to live, but the quality of living with sewer backups, can't get no one from the company, can't find the owner of the property, but I'm quite sure someone knows who owned that property. But other than that, it took for me to go to the Boys and Girls Club and to make a phone call to 2 people that showed concern about our issues to come and address the issues and to guide us into the right directions of resources. So I had spoke to Ms. Strong back here, and whereas though she had told me to, place my money in escrow, and she was going to contact them at the rental office. But whereas though they don't pick up the phone, they don't show up. So they had an event at the Boys and Girls Club that was almost shut down. So they was giving out turkeys at that event. And we have another resident that give out turkeys that's from Admiral Oaks. So that day, it was inside. So once I went inside, they had some resources in there. I think it was,
We got just closing statements.
say again?
Closing statements, because the buzzer is going
Oh,
off.
the buzzer.
Yeah. You can wrap it up.
Oh, just want to
Yeah.
wrap it up. I want to thank Tony Strong for being an advocate. I want to thank Keon New for coming to my unit and inspecting my unit and getting me in the right direction and having them come in and fix it. And they sent me to a hotel for 8 days, but it's still mold and moisture, and we're dying from the mold. And they sent out a Newsweek letter saying the fungus is among us and the mold is a killer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next. Just make sure
Yes, hi.
name and address.
Taria Davis, 458A Captain Circle, under the management of Enterprise Management. As Ms. Pendel stated earlier, the turnovers in the office are excessively ridiculous. In 2022, I was displaced from my home because my bathroom had excessive mold in it. I reached out to Ms. Pratt here, and she sent out city inspectors, which they condemned my home. Upon being in the hotel, I was there for 7 months. I went back into my unit roughly 2 days after the home was condemned because I had to grab things to be at the hotel. All of my things were damaged, about 85% of those. 15% were damaged by mold. I reached out to the rental office via email, telephone, and the portal, which is an accessible guide and tool for the residents. The mold is amongst us, as they said in the newsletter. It's very deadly. It is living in inhumane conditions, which is very poor conditions. My bathroom was just again in 2025. Recently, 3 weeks ago, the mold had came back again. I reached out once again to Ms. Pratt, and she diligently got those inspectors back out. They have condemned the unit upstairs in the bathroom. They had to rip out the tub. Amongst them doing so, they pulled up a couple pieces of the plywood in the floor, but not the subfloor. I had suggested to them that they do so because I had been living in my unit since I was the age of 18. my unit in front of the bathroom used to be very overly heated and hot on the floor. Well, they poured the subfloor up and found that for 18 years of me living there, there was no ventilation in the bathroom, which the city inspectors also noted to them that that was a problem as well and could reoccur over time. Since then, they have just ripped up the bathroom floor again, and now it's mold underneath the bathroom subfloor again. The conditions there are very poor. The outreach program that are giving to most are not reachable. I've sat there and spoken to several managers in the office, but nothing is being done. Thank you.
And you can, if you wrap up, you did good? Okay. Anybody else want to speak? Ms. Pratt?
Good evening. My name is Tony Pratt. Just sitting here listening to this really is triggering and traumatizing because I've been doing this since 2021, and these are not isolated incidents. The few residents that you have here doesn't speak of the totality of issues that we have on that property. The property is the majority of the property is Hispanics, and they are afraid to come forward. So if you think the residents that spoke today and the horrific conditions they're living in, just think of the ones who don't want to speak because they're putting themselves in danger. And I'm going to tell you about an incident about a year ago. Brooks and I was in Florida, I believe. I was out of town, and a resident called me. It was a Hispanic resident, and a resident was in her living room with ankle-deep water, and we had to be on the phone for hours. I know Brooks remember that, trying to get this resident someplace to live. Finally, at the 99th hour, they moved her out of that unit. I've seen residents living in black mold, and the contractors and the maintenance come out and use a specialized paint to paint over top it. But when you don't get to the source of the mold, it comes back. So these residents are living in black mold. And if you know, when mold gets the spores, the spores, I can't even think of what it is, stacky spores, they come and they cut out the residents' walls, and they put these big fans in it. And spores are going all through the house. You have babies, you have people, you have humans living in these conditions. And the city comes out. My problem with the city's inspections are, because I lived in public housing, I lived in subsidized housing, and what happens in a city inspection is they come out, they look in the refrigerator to make sure that the lights are working. They make sure the smoke detectors are working, and they leave. So to find any of those other problems that are going on, they aren't, unless the residents are speaking up. But let me tell you what happens when the residents speak up most of the time. They are retaliated against, and they do it in a way that if you have a lease violation, I'll tack it to the lease violation so it won't look as if I'm retaliating on you. But now residents are becoming more aware, more knowledgeable, and more educated on how to fight back. This is the city of Annapolis. Anne Arundel County is one of the wealthiest places in the world. And there's only 2 feet from downtown Annapolis and these properties that we're talking about. And we would not have this happening in downtown Annapolis without everybody on this city council doing something about it. I applaud you, Rhonda, for getting involved. I applaud you, Brooks, for staying up after time to get something done. Something needs to be done, and something needs to be done now. Because what's going to happen is we're going to have another lawsuit, the third one, because now we're in a, class action lawsuit for the same inhumane, discriminatory issues. This needs to stop, and it needs to stop now. Thank you.
Alderman Shannon Meyer.
Ms. Strong Pratt is also forgetting to include that that was the night before Thanksgiving that she was doing that. So thank you for spending your pre-holiday night trying to help some folks.
Thank you very much. Just your name and address.
My name is Carolyn Jones, 430 Captain Circle. The property is tax credit. They received $18 million funding that they are not using the right way. I've resided there since 2005. They're fixing the issues on the inside. I'm up already?
No, sorry. Yeah.
The problem is on the outside. When I was moved to my 430 from 450, we on wetland. They had the cement things to water run down off the property to go down in the ground. Well, when the guy sold the property, he removed all of that. All of the boundaries around the buildings, they were all cracked, all of it's gone. So now the water is just going into the building. When August, they tore out my bedroom to the outside. But I had the little containers in there now. They're filling up with water again. They're addressing the inside, but no one is listening. They need the city people, planning, zoning, whoever, to evaluate the outside. If they don't do the outside, we're going to continue to have the problem. But I've told the maintenance people, I've told the engineer, David Keynes, whatever his name is, he just chuckled. He didn't want to listen. But I'm an old farm lady, and I tell it like it is. They are not doing it right, and they're taking it personal. When the residents approach them, they become angry, like we're at fault. It's the property itself, it's wetland. When they did the reconstruction, I went around to look at the building I'm in, nothing but water. Did they put sand and rocks under that building? No. They just sand it all and left it just like that. So the issue is from the land itself. It needs to be torn up, or everything needs to be torn out, but we need more dirt. We're going down on the ground. So the zoning and planning, that's what we need. Enterprise, they don't know. We need someone that's dealing with building structure. Because we're gonna be talking here, and they're gonna be fixing on the inside, and the same problem over and over and over again. My windows, you can feel the air coming through. I got a letter was sent to them to fix it, but it all goes back to the engineer. He's never been there on the property to support whoever they have there. During the summer, I pointed out to David Haynes about the roof in 432. He took the picture, but they're just getting around to doing something. He's not doing his job. That's all I have to say. And I thank y'all for listening. But it's the outside issue that need to fix. It's the building and the structure itself. There's no insulation in the walls when they tore my walls out. It's the brick and the sheetrock. That's it.
Thank
you all.
No, thank you. Thank you for coming forward and providing testimony. And I will echo, what she just said makes me think of when our colleague, Alderwoman Tierney, was on this committee. She went out to the property as well, and she was a former engineer. And the very first thing that she said was, I don't know how this is standing up when all the water is driving into the bottom of the property. And so I again, that's something that we'll, definitely have planning and zoning take a look at. But I vividly remember Alderwoman Tierney mentioning that. Any other testimony?
Keanu Smith Brown. It's difficult to sit down and listen to these stories, to be on the phone calls for hours listening to the pain and the conditions that these families are living in. I used to live in Admiral Oaks, and I grew up with Alderman Gay Dewan Gay in Admiral Oaks, and the conditions back then were not livable. So to see after all of these years, change has not been had, is to show that someone isn't doing what they need to do. And accountability must come from that. It is a shame and it's quite disregarding to the basic human right of a quality of life. We must provide that for our residents, all of our residents, regardless of their income, regardless of their background. And so whatever power we have as a city and a people, we need to take that power and use it. So please, on behalf of all of our residents, our family, our friends, we have to do something immediately. So if that is judicial, let's go to let's take it to the courts. Let's do it. It's necessary. We don't have to question it. Hearing the suffering, the health issues that many of these families, our children are dealing with, the mold, and we're just gonna sit back and not do anything about that? That is unacceptable. And so I do not speak because I, per se, don't have the amount of hurt that they deal with on a daily basis, but I try to empathize. You know, I try to see it from their perspectives. I try to be where they may be, but I'm not in that situation. And I am a little privileged to not be in that situation, although coming from public housing, Section 8 housing, my mom did her best to get us up out of that. But they don't deserve that. And I'm gonna be there every step of the way. Every step of the way, whether you live in Ward 3 or do not live in Ward 3. This is our city of Annapolis, the capital of the state. And so I urge you all and the remaining city council members to take a stand on behalf of all of us, and to see it from their perspectives, and to love and to unify, to bring about this transformative change. And I must also call out Toni Strong-Pratt. For years, she has been pushing and advocating. I listen to her and I feel more empowered. I'm already empowered, but I feel more empowered because we have to come together to solve these issues. We're not in this alone. Look to your neighbors so that we can get this done. And so I know that Alderman Shannon-Meyer, Alderman Gay, and Alderman Huntley will be fighting on your behalf. I know that for certain. And I know the remaining alderpersons will do the same because they do care. Okay? And so I say God bless you and all of the rest of our city residents. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Any other additional comments?
Thank you.
I think that closes out the portion of this ID, which is ID 2825, the Admiral Oaks update. We'll have to, follow up immediately this week with the Office of Law. Once we get that information from the Office of Law, then I guess that gives us marching orders on what we can do with the planning department. So, Rhonda, would you then just take the lead of conveying, any updates to the residents in Ward 3?
Certainly, not
Awesome.
a problem.
Yeah, just in case we have to have them come back or anything like that.
It's up to them if they want to come back for the next meeting.
Mm-hmm.
That's their call. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
To come back for the next meeting,
That's your call.
Yeah.
and what will take place in the next meeting about them summons for the owner and the district property manager?
That's their committee's
Yeah,
response.
well, that's what, and that's,
My question.
yeah, that's what we'll figure out. That's what, we'll get an update from our city attorney. Once we get an update from our city attorney, then we'll work with our planning department to figure out what we can do. Because right now is, do we amend what we have to give us, expanding authority, and what will that authority be? Or do we not need to do that? Can we just simply use the existing city code and figure out what's up? But we'll figure that out. We just don't know yet.
Oh, one question, so you said,
Come to the, you have to come to the mic.
I'm the only one that,
Oh, yeah, so with the next meeting. So apparently, it seems as though that the property manager, owner, district manager, Princess, is not showing up to these meetings and is not showing up to court trials. So if we came this far from the pushback and being bullied about bringing these issues forward and coming this far. What's the next step? I mean, I understand that they are sent out the Warriors to patch up a whole lot of stuff. City of Annapolis apparently must be coming back out. So if we still going through these issues, then I think we should take it further.
Well, of course, but that's, we're in agreement with you, but we just don't know yet. And particularly, as you mentioned, the next step in the property management not showing up. That's why we were having a conversation and looking at the city code and saying, what leverage do we go to the, or I'm sorry, as it relates to the code, do we make that request tonight, or do we make that request in writing? Which I'm assuming it has to be in writing. We'll let the attorney just give us that, or tell us the right thing to do. If I take a vote tonight to subpoena the property management of Admiral Oaks, I'm almost positive it has no, it'll have no meaning. I think the correct thing to do is have our Office of Law either with themselves write something and have it sent out to the Enterprise Property Management, or work with the district court, which handles most of the landlord-tenant disputes, to figure out how we fix this issue. But I'm not prepared to take any action tonight just because we don't know what to do.
Oh, so what action should we take? We came this far to City Hall, so do you think we should just go ahead to the district court?
I'm not going to tell you that on the.
I know, but it's
on
just,
the dais.
it seemed like it's a rodeo.
No, I don't. I'm not going to tell you that on the dais. But this is what I'll say. It's Wednesday the 12th. We'll be following up with the Office of Law. She's already sent out a message tonight. Once we get our marching orders from them, we'll work with Chris's department to figure out the next steps. He's already made us aware that their inspections are scheduled for the 17th and the 18th, which are next.
Oh, so
18th and
so they're
19th.
coming back out the 18th and the 19th.
18th and 19th. That'll give us a little more insight to what's going on. Our next meeting is scheduled for March the 17th, but as we alluded to earlier, that's a month away. We don't want to wait until then. So we need to get in touch with the property management as well to make sure that they can get here. So I don't know what I can tell you as it relates to marching orders that the residents can do, but I know what we will be doing, which is, as I've just laid out to you.
Okay,
trying to get law and then working with
so the City of Annapolis is coming back out. What date?
the 17th and the 18th.
Okay, so as the City of Annapolis people are coming out, so are y'all coming out to inspect all the units or just the units that they had someone out to come out and repair?
It's an annual inspection, so all the units have to be inspected.
Okay, so it's the electrical,
I'll let you
box
speak
and
to
the
Chris
electrical
offline.
box need to be checked because the water damage is real. It's through the structure.
I'm not saying that I don't believe that, but I don't know what the actual inspection process is. So I'll let you grab.
Okay.
Let you grab his ear really quickly. And Chris, if you'd like, you can also, or I'm sorry, Deputy Buckland, if you'd like, you could send us the standard policy and procedure for the inspections, and we can share that with the residents as well.
Oh, yeah. I just wanted to know how many violations did Enterprise have when they came out the last time. That's all.
Somebody can get that information. Hold on, because I got 3 questions on the dais as well. The first is Alderman Schandelmeyer. I'll go to my colleague on the Huntley, and then Schandelmeyer.
Yes. Can Director Jakubiak come back to the table, please? Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Kubiak, so when one of the residents brought up how there was a lot of mold underneath the tubs and the subfloors of the bathrooms, I'm assuming that's not covered in the inspection process because that's a very deep dive into it. Is that a correct assumption on my part?
I don't know that's incorrect. I'm going to explore that. I know the Ms. Davis experienced this mold issue, and the inspector that went out there required that the floors and the subfloors be replaced. And then things became known that weren't known previously. So they took it one step further. So I don't know necessarily that our inspections stop just at what can be seen. And it would make sense to me that if there's evidence of systemic problems, the inspector should explore those. And that's what Mary Emmerich did in this latest inspection. So that might be the level of inspection that's necessary to document issues, vulnerabilities, potentialities that need to be investigated. So this may require a different type of inspections that heretofore haven't happened. But I'll say I shouldn't use this as an excuse, but I am still new to this position, and I don't have the background that the residents have shared with you. So I'm learning tonight, and that's why I'm glad I'm here. But I'm convening a staff meeting already tomorrow morning with our inspectors and our chief inspection officer to uncover these issues.
Yeah, thank you. I think especially in this case, since these are pretty systemic issues with very frequent complaints on this, and we do have very compelling testimony from a resident, I do think that deep inspection, especially in the bathroom areas, is warranted. This has been several times when residents have come forward to us from the Admiral Oaks community. Mold issues in the bathrooms has been a frequent complaint, so there's obviously something wrong with the design of the bathrooms in these buildings.
And if I may add, just follow up to that, the issues may in fact be outside issues, exterior issues, and that it may require an inspection that is much more comprehensive than the city has done in the past.
As comprehensive as possible should be conducted. I appreciate your agreement on that. My second question is in regards to the issue brought up that these are poor drainage areas. Do we have the ability to compel redesign for drainage on our part? Is that something within our power, or is that...
Or stormwater engineer? Can our stormwater engineer?
Can our stormwater engineer require this, or is this something that we can only compel redesign and restructuring of the buildings themselves for the residents, and outside the buildings we're just kind of hapless?
Well, it doesn't do anyone good to keep patching up problems that are related to exterior issues and conditions. So I think within the spirit of the code, we need to look at these exterior issues as well. So I'm going to do that. And if we need legislative backup, we will come to you, to the city council, and ask for zoning text, or excuse me, not zoning text amendments, but Title 17 text amendments that make it clear. Yeah, fundamentally, if a unit, a building is being degraded by the environment, it's not suitable for living. And we have to make the determinations about suitability for living. If things are not suitable, it's incumbent upon us to condemn it. And that's the process that is set up in code. Whether the specifics are in the code that are necessary to do that, we'll figure that out. But we'll look into this.
Thank you, because especially the lower units that are a little more submerged in ground, the drainage is probably the likely source of a lot of these issues. And how the property management company seems to have been dealing with this is a lot of patchwork. Whether they're doing it in good faith or doing it to try and save a buck, I don't know. I'm not going to speculate. But it's not working.
I'm going to ask the council to remember who the owner is, not just the property management, that they bear ultimate responsibility. The managers come and go, but it's the owner, who's a national corporation, who's lauded as one of the premier affordable housing providers in the country, that is responsible for conditions on the property.
What the owner is doing is not working. And so if we have the ability to compel environmental redesign, that may start cutting off a lot of these problems at the source, so that we can stop having to get cleanup problems, which are which do help residents, but they also disrupt residents' lives. I'd rather just not have the disruption and give them a safe place to live in the first place. So, thank you. That's all my questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. I think we have just 2 more points. Do we need a director for your?
I do not.
No, just one thing I want to make clear.
That's okay.
I'm not a member of this committee, so that's why I brought it to them. Some of them have some expertise in this area. Most recently, I've been turning to Ms. Tony because she has the professional background and this is what she does professionally. But I've been listening and hearing. And I've been bringing Enterprise in here. Well, but the next step, in my estimation, is, like we said, is to look at the Office of Law, because if we're going to bring them in here the next time and they don't want to come, then they'll be subpoenaed. And that brings on other ramifications, which means we have to go through the step of going to court. So they have to be given notice and that sort of thing if they don't come anymore. But we're going to check on that this week to make sure that if they don't, then we have to go through the law office to get it right.
Wait. Ms. Neal, 1 second.
Have I misspoken?
No. I want to give the alderman a chance.
Yeah, this is I appreciate that you brought this up because this is the point I was going to touch on exactly. I'm a big believer in working in parallel versus working in series. It sounds like the plan that the chairman is proposing is that we go to the law office, ask them about doing this, and then we would need to have a vote at the next meeting, and then they could be required to appear at the following meeting. My suggestion, I won't quite make a motion yet, is that if what we want is for these folks to be here, that we vote tonight and say, thank you. Well, we vote tonight and say, to the extent that we have the authority to do this, and within whatever confines the law office needs, that we just do it now, right?
I don't know if that will give us the...
I think it does. So we're directing the law office to use our powers to the extent we have. And if the law office comes back and says, actually, you guys don't have any powers, well, then no harm, no foul, right?
Well, we've done a voice vote subpoena before when we had the we done a voice vote subpoena when we had the Admiral Oaks property management here in October of 2022. I mean, listen, if it appeases the general public, we can do it. And if we find out that it doesn't work, we'll bring it back. I agree with you. It'll save us time. We also, I'll always have the option of scheduling a special meeting. But But what we'll do is, because we got to wrap this idea up, I'll entertain a motion from the alderman on a voice vote. We'll take the voice vote. Regardless of what happens with the voice vote, we'll still follow up with the Office of Law. That'll always ultimately lead us back to planning and zoning. And that, and as he just said, we'll either take the policy route or we'll take a legislative approach. So either the council will be involved or the staff will be involved. So we'll wrap this idea up on Admiral Oaks. So, hopefully that we have some end results here in the year of 2025. As my friend Keanu has mentioned, we grew up in Admiral Oaks. I can't remember what my unit was number, but I do vividly remember our bedroom, the children's bedroom, faced the back, and when it would rain, it would constantly flood our floors, etc. And we were on the bottom floor, and so obviously it's a shared lived experience. And so let's get this vote on the floor from the alderman, and let's wrap up this ID.
My motion is that pursuant to City Code Section 2.04.020, that the Housing and Human Welfare Standing Committee, through its chairman, summons the testimony of Enterprise to our next scheduled meeting, which I believe is currently scheduled for March 17th, but that we compel it to whatever our next scheduled meeting is. That we do so in accordance with whatever powers the law office has determined that we have.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And any opposed? All right, so we'll follow up with law. We'll let the Alderwoman from Ward 3 knows what they say, and she will convey that to her constituency. We'll all see you hopefully before the 17th. So let's bank on that. Thank you also for the staff. I wanted to continue this. The reason I didn't postpone was because it had been postponed twice previously. I know the snow kind of screwed everything up, but I just thought it was important. So Director Jakubiak, thank you very, very much for being here tonight. We appreciate that. Next item on the agenda is ID 18424, Lease Behavior Modification Diversion Program discussion.
That's also Aisha, who's,
Okay. My question is, I need to have it, instead of being sent out at 50,000 all at once, into two portions, 25 and 25. And so, what I'd like to do ideally is have it a fund transfer on our city council meeting either at the end of February or at the beginning of March, so that we can have a trial program underway. Because we also have to spend this money before the end of the budget cycle.
I'll connect with Aisha.
Okay. And did you have a chance to check out the business model that I sent you for this program? It was maybe at the last November meeting. It was a while since we discussed this. I'll re-forward it.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so we'll loop back up on this, the Lease Behavior Modification Diversion Program. As I've mentioned, when I got this in the budget for the amendments, and as we've just seen tonight, it's so important that we have some sort of program or operation under place with a nonprofit organization where residents are able to be educated on what's in their lease, and two, what can they do as residents and as advocates for themselves. And I think it's important to also bring this in is because they always come to us as older people. And sometimes, one, we don't have the capacity. Two, we just don't have the professional knowledge or skill to understand, I haven't done property management. I could imagine how I would do property management, but I haven't. And so, sometimes it's helpful to have courses, expertise, and advocates, leading training on that. And so my plan is to take $25,000 to do one property, $25,000 to do another, and if we like it, we'll bring it back in the budget in full. And so but we need the Office of Community Services, and I need to have a fund transfer started on that for our last meeting in February, the first meeting in March. So I'll loop back with Vicky on that. Any other questions on ID 18424? No, sir. I will close that out. Next item on the agenda is adjournment. Is anything for the good of the order? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Have a good night.